Please be aware, in this podcast series we talk about all areas of safeguarding, which some people may find upsetting. So please make sure you're okay listening to today's topic. Be mindful of those around you, such as children, that you might not want to listen in. Hi, I'm SSS Safeguarding Director Sam Preston.
And I'm former head teacher and content author Sarah Spinks.
Hello and welcome to Safeguarding Conversations. In this podcast, we're looking at something many schools may not even realise is happening, and that is the rise of online gambling amongst teenagers. So we're going to look at how it's happening, why it matters, and as a safeguarding issue, what schools can do. So Sarah, when we say gambling, I think, most people still think of betting shops and slot machines and whatnot, but that's not really how it looks for young people today, is it?
No, not at all. It's much more hidden, and much more normalised. So we're talking about things like loot boxes in video games, betting apps and crypto casinos, even games on social media that mimic gambling but don't always look like it on the surface.
So the Gambling Commission's latest report, it says that 27% of 11 to 17-year-olds have spent their own money on gambling in the last year. So that's over a quarter of all teens, and that's just the ones that we know about. So what do we think is driving the rise?
Well, I think there are a few key reasons for the increase. One is definitely access. Teens don't need to walk into a betting shop now. They can download an app or they can use a parent's account. Another one is normalisation. So sport betting is everywhere. You only have to turn on television and you see millions of adverts, football, boxing, Formula One, sponsorships, adverts, influencers. So young people grow up seeing it as part of everyday entertainment. And there are other sites or apps where young people are being encouraged to spend money, which are not overtly advertised or thought of as gambling. And then let's not forget lockdown. So isolation and boredom during the pandemic drove many to explore new apps, games and platforms. And some of those had gambling features built in it.
Yeah, and the regulation gap is huge. Those loot boxes, virtual currency for add-ons in gameplay and in-game purchases often fly under the radar, even though the mechanics are identical to gambling. Chance-based rewards, real money involvement, and that, it's that dopamine hit, isn't it? So the question is, in terms of safeguarding, what are the warning signs?
Well, I think this can be really tricky because gambling amongst teens is often hidden, but there are signs. So obsession with certain games or apps, talking a lot about odds or wins, mood swings tied to money or phone use. I remember my son being obsessed with FIFA as a teenager and was always asking me if he could buy this, that and the other. And it was always a straight no from me. But that temptation, and as you say, that dopamine hit and that absolute drive of in-game purchases is there on what can seem initially as an innocent game.
Yeah. And it's, I suppose, other things to look out is borrowing money, even stealing, money with no clear reason where you can put it down to what are they using this, I mean, sometimes, it's things like unexplained purchases, secretive behaviour with their phones, including VPN use or fake accounts.
And don't underestimate those emotional cues. Gambling can cause anxiety, withdrawal and academic drop-off, especially when young people use it as a coping mechanism.
And, some children, young people, they might not even realise that what they are doing is gambling. I mean, I've heard them refer to it as these opening packs or making side money, but the behavioural hooks are the same and the risks are just as serious, aren't they?
Absolutely. So some research I've read from the US, actually, the Journal of Behavioural Addiction, shows that gambling amongst young people is associated with depression, substance misuse, and even suicidal thoughts in extreme cases. So it is a really serious safeguarding issue.
It is, and it can also be tied to exploitation as well. Some teens become involved in scams or money laundering via gaming platforms, sometimes without even realising that they are being used in this process.
Absolutely. And it isn't just a financial issue as well. It's a safeguarding concern, as I said, and schools need to start seeing it in that way.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So let's talk solutions. In terms of schools, what can schools actually do?
Well, I think first, include gambling in PSHE or life skills lessons. And it's not just the obvious stuff, it's talk about loot boxes, crypto platforms, and influencer culture too. And if you're not sure what they are, research them. Make sure that you're clued up. Make sure that you are in the know with those terminology.
Yeah, it's also important to train staff to log those concerns when they notice maybe strange funny behaviour, secrecy, sudden changes in mood. Yeah.
Yeah, and also signpost support. There is support out there. Make sure that pupils know that they can get help from places like, and these are just a few, GamCare, YGAM, or Childline, and there are others that are out there as well. Put posters up, include it in assemblies, keep it visible and on that sort of conversational radar.
And also keep the DSL looped in. Make sure gambling's recognised in risk assessments and safeguarding training. I think sometimes with topics like this within the safeguarding remit, they're often maybe covered as a one-off thing where you maybe do a little bit of awareness training on it and then that's it. It's just never mentioned again. And it's something that it can be going on in its own right, but it can also be part of that very, very big collective picture of things that might be going quite seriously wrong in a young person's life. It could be a contributing factor.
Absolutely. And I think also, be really aware around those big sporting events, the Euros, the World Cup, major boxing matches, sort of that betting culture often intensifies around those times.
Yeah, I mean, as we said earlier, it's not just, slot machines and, walking into a betting shop anymore. It's embedded in games, apps, online spaces that teenagers use every day. I mean, apps I use, games I play, it's a case of you've got so many lives, you've run out. It's really annoying because you kind of think you might have just figured out what it is you need to do, but you've run out of lives and it's like buy more, buy more, buy more. And it is very, very tempting, And this kind of behaviour, because it's so normalised, it often just goes unnoticed in terms of a safeguarding agenda.
Absolutely. But I think, if we talk about it early and challenge those myths and give pupils the tools to make informed choices, we can help them stay in control, before the risks take root.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that we've spoken about this today. I'm sure we'll come back to this. I know certainly I would like to go away and do a little bit more around some of the research and evidence. I'd like to look into that a little bit further and just see what sort of patterns are emerging and maybe talk a little bit more about the surrounding sports services. And we'll make sure we share that information with you. I think my final thing, this is what safeguarding is all about. It's that collective picture and it's just actually taking a step back, just as we're asking young people to do, take a step back and just consider children are always, they're going to be using their phones, they're going to be using these apps, they're going to be involved in these things. And we need to think about ensuring they have, they're equipped to use them safely, but also that we're equipped to recognise when things might be going wrong.